Hi, good morning. It's Councillor Glen. It's Saturday morning, and today I am in front of the Stittsville branch of the Ottawa Public Library on Stittsville Main Street. If you've never been here before, it is just south of Carleton Cathcart, so just past the Ultramar on Stittsville Main Street. They're not open yet. They'll be open today, but I had a book to drop off, so I put in the slot. On Monday of this week, they reopened for in-person browsing. So up until this week, for quite a few weeks or months, you could only pick up and drop off holds, not a lot of access there. I remember when I picked up the book that I had on loan a few weeks ago, I was behind a few people in line, and there was an older woman in front of me who stopped in and had quite a lengthy conversation with one of the librarians, and I was chatting with the librarians after, and they were just telling me how during the pandemic there were a lot of people who were sort of checking in, checking out of the library, and it was a really important point of connection for them. The woman in particular in front of me was an older woman who lived on her own, and she would come every week, take the bus to the library, and it was one of the ways that she was staying connected and staying social. So the library, beyond being a great place to rent a book, to borrow a book or use a computer, is also a really important, plays a really important role in our community and the social life of our community. So really glad to see the library back and fully open. I've got a few updates, a few local updates, a few city updates, so I'll jump into that. I'll start with vaccines, because again, we have some really good milestones. If you remember last week, I was telling you Ottawa reached 1 million doses administered, which is pretty incredible. The big milestone reached this week. Actually, there's two. First of all, we're now at 50% of adults ages 12 years and up have now received 2 vaccinations. So that's the 50% milestone. I know Chief DeMonte, who's the head of Ottawa's vaccine task force, was saying this is something he's going to pop some champagne over, a really big thing to celebrate, 50%. The other big milestone I think is important is both the Queensway Carleton and I believe the Ottawa Hospital reported no COVID-19 hospitalizations, which is pretty incredible when you think about just back in May, there were dozens of people with COVID-19 in the hospital. So the hospitalizations are very much at a manageable level now, which is great. This Friday, the Ontario government will be relaxing the restrictions, the pandemic restrictions, so moving into stage 3 on Friday. And the other thing starting this week is if you need a first dose of your vaccine, you're now able to just drop into a clinic. You don't need an appointment, you don't need a reservation. You can just drop into one of the community clinics like Canadian Tire Centre, like the Eva James Centre in Canada as well. There's more information on my website, on the Ottawa Public Health website, on the ontario.ca website. If you're someone who hasn't had a dose yet, I'd love to hear from you. Just, no pressure, respect your privacy. Let me know why you haven't received a first dose yet. Send me an email. I'd just love to know the reasons. We're trying to understand why people might have decided not to have a first dose yet. So send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. A few local things. We're continuing to get a lot of calls about Bell utility work, particularly in the Crossing Bridge neighborhood and the Wyldewood neighborhood, some issues with driveways and landscaping. You should have received a notice in your mailbox with some information, likely for a company called Telecon. They are the contractor that Bell has tasked with doing this installation. That's the number you can call if you have issues, first and foremost. If you're not getting a response or you've lost that number, email my office. I'd be happy to put you in touch with Bell. Bell in general has been very responsive, so thank you to Bell for any issues. But we are finding a few that are dragging on to get resolved, or that people are having difficulties getting a response. I'd be happy in that case to connect residents with our city inspectors who can help you out there as well. So if you're having issues with Bell, call Telecon first, and if you're not getting an adequate response, please contact me. I've also had a few inquiries about blasting. Why is the blasting still ongoing? Yes, it was supposed to be wrapped up just a few weeks ago in the Fernbank and Shea area. Spoke with Kavanaugh recently. They encountered more rock and denser rock in their construction zone than they anticipated, and so that's why the blasting operations are ongoing. And they've also moved into not the construction for the homes now, but the construction of the trunk sewer. So there's still several weeks left yet of that blasting. And I think worth reminding people as well, there's a lot of land undeveloped in the Fernbank area, around the Fernbank Road area. that's heavy in rock and that is slated for residential development and commercial development in the future. And so we will see off and on for the next several years some blasting. I know it's incredibly disruptive for folks who are working from home, and I thank you for your patience. There is information on my website if you have concerns that your building may be damaged. I'm also meeting this week with city staff. I have some ideas. Although blasting is regulated by the provincial and federal governments, I have a few ideas of some small things I think the city could do to help out residents. For example, maybe there's a way that we could extend the notification area. Another idea I had is just a registry of blasting. There's no central spot where you can see here are all the companies running blasting operations in Stittsville and Kanata and across Ottawa, and I think that alone would be helpful to help folks navigate and understand what's going on. Anyhow, stay tuned, more on that. The other local thing is the Wyldewood sign, I believe, is going in this week. We've had, I won't go into the story, but delay over COVID and other things, but I believe the nameplate on the sign will finally be installed this week, which is good news. Okay, some citywide stuff. We had a really busy week at City Hall. We had a very long meeting of the Finance and Economic Development Committee on Tuesday. That's about 6 hours. And then I chaired a planning committee meeting on Thursday for about 10 hours. So a lot of Zoom, too much Zoom at City Hall. But a few important things I wanted to share. Oh, we also had a council meeting too. We looked at Lansdowne Park and we directed staff to go ahead and work on a business plan to finance the redevelopment of the north side stands in the Ottawa Civic Centre. I used to work there 20 years ago. I used to work for the Ottawa 67s, and the arena and Lansdowne Park at that time was in pretty embarrassing shape, and there were some renovations done when the Red Blacks and OSEG took over, but the building has really reached the end of its lifespan. It's going to cost some money, and there's some options on how to find that money without dipping into city coffers. One of them is about a redevelopment of that site with housing as a way to offset the cost. And also by bringing in more events and more sports activities, it'll also make it a more viable business opportunity there at Lansdowne Park. Lansdowne Park, the buildings are owned by the City of Ottawa. They're owned by us, by taxpayers. So we can't just let them decay and fall apart. We do need to put some attention to that. So in a few months' time, staff will be coming back to us with some options and a business plan for how that can be done. We also had a lengthy discussion about budget direction for 2022. We didn't decide on the budget, but we gave staff direction on where we'd like to see some targets. And so once again, we're looking at targeting taxes to increase by the rate of inflation, about 3%, recognizing the increased costs of salaries and city services. One of the most controversial things you may have heard is about police budgets. And I know I have heard from many people in the community about concern about the rising or the raise to the police budget. I supported a motion that ultimately failed by my colleague Jean Cloutier, that if the police board can come back with a 0% increase, then any additional money between that and 3% would be funneled towards mental health initiatives in the community. Basically a way to nudge the police board who decides on these things that we'd like to see something to a 0% if we can. There's still a lot of discussion to come at our next council meeting on July 21st. The other thing at City Council, I spoke about this at Council, our city's Auditor General is going to do a proactive audit of risks around the $1 billion e-bus procurement plan. We received some funding from the federal government, I talked about this a few weeks ago, to convert the entire bus fleet from diesel to electric buses. Staff identified a number of financial risks and technology risks and so on. The Auditor General is going to investigate all these risks and advise Council before we make a decision. I welcome this role of the Auditor General. Often the auditor comes in at the end after everything's been done and says, oh, you should have done this, this, and this. Well, this is a great role for the auditor to play, to actually advise us before we make those decisions, so we understand what the risks are and are comfortable that they've been appropriately mitigated or addressed. So this is good. Okay, what's coming up this week? Thursday at noon, I'm doing another Councillor Chat. We're doing that on Zoom and on Facebook Live, so I hope you can join us for that. There's details on my website, and there's a Facebook event as well set up. Also, Thursday evening in Stittsville, it was postponed from last week, is the Stittsville Porch concert series organized by Sarah and a number of neighbors. It's a great idea. If you search for it on Facebook, Stittsville Porch Concert, you will find a map of I think, dozens of locations where there are musicians and bands set to perform on the front porch of Stittsville homes. What a great idea, and hopefully the weather this week cooperates. I think it's a really great idea. I know today there's a bunch of garage sales and activities happening in different neighborhoods in Stittsville. That's great, and it looks like we have a beautiful day. I biked over, I'll be biking back. Oh, look at that, there's a cargo bike driving by. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool bike on Stittsville, Maine. Anyways, I hope you get out to explore your neighborhood. One last thing. We are asking our city staff to take some vacation. Many of them have been working flat out for 12 months, for almost 18 months on COVID, and they've been seconded to other work, and they've had very few opportunities to take a break. I think people will understand with any organization, you need your staff to recharge, to have that time to get away from the office a little bit so they can come back in full force. Now, this is the summer, and we're really encouraging staff at the city and my office staff to take a week here, to take 2 weeks here. As a result, we've got a lot of people taking holidays at the same time. And I just want to give people a heads up. Please be patient as we're responding to your requests. Something that may take a few days, may take a week. Something that may usually take a week, may take a couple weeks. We do care about all your requests, and we're doing the best we can to keep up with the demand. But I think it is healthy that people do take a break. So in the summertime, sometimes things will take a little bit longer than normal. But thank you for your patience on that. And with that, I will say goodbye today, and have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Saturday. Take care.